Welcome back to ATL Day Ones, everybody. I am Tenitra. That is Jarvis. And we are so glad you guys are coming back to talk to us because guess what? This is going into a game week for the Falcons. So, just like always, we bring you guys amazing content. And how do we know? Because you keep giving us 5-star reviews. So, whenever you rock with us, we appreciate that and continue to tell everybody else to just download us wherever you download your podcast. And also keep checking us out on YouTube. You guys leave some really cool comments there as well, and we appreciate that. And you're getting us ever so close as Locked On Sports Atlanta to 4,000 subscribers. So keep hitting the like button and keep subscribing because guess what? Every day, all day, in addition to talking Braves, UGA, some United, and maybe some Hawks too. We'll do that in fourth culture. But we are going to just drop all kinds of Falcon nuggets in your lap. So today we're talking about the depth chart that dropped yesterday. And I got to start where Jarvis had started a couple weeks ago because it's like fast forwarding to his insight after what we saw both the training camp and in those first couple preseason games. But I wanted to call it out, Jarvis, because you mentioned it first, where we're kind of holding our breath to see, okay, who's going to make the depth chart? What is the order going to look like? But all eyes were really on that final space along that O line, which was center. Was it going to be Drew Dalman? Was it going to be Matt Hennessy? We see that it's Drew Dalman who's in that starting position at center. What are your thoughts?
I'll continue to say, how I felt, when I declared that Matt Hennessy had won the position right on this show. I think that Matt Hennessy probably showed a little bit better than Drew Dalman because I saw some things in his game that I saw from last year, and I thought that there wasn't really any progression there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from the Falcons standpoint, I think from an evaluation standpoint, I think that I'm not too surprised that they ended up going with Dalman because when you think about it, Matt Hennessy is from the previous regime,
Sure.
and he's a guy that they feel strongly about. You feel
Mm-hmm.
strongly about a player until you don't feel strongly about him. So, hey, if this guy couldn't beat out a guy like Matt Hennessy, that would be a very bad look on this regime.
Yeah.
From because we know how sensitive we get, from the media standpoint and from fans as well
Right.
about offensive lineman evaluation. And
Yes.
they
Yes.
haven't. This organization hasn't done a good job of that in the past
Yeah.
15 years. So I
Yeah.
think that for them to kind of be out on a guy and Matt Hennessy,
Mm-hmm.
take the starting reins, it wouldn't have been a good look. So I think that they went with the guy that they drafted. They saying, okay, if it's even, if it was they feel like I feel like they feel like that the competition was even, and if
Yes.
it's even, we're gonna go with our guy,
Give it to your
and,
guy.
and yeah,
That's
give it to your
yeah.
guy, and let's see what happens. And I think that ultimately, that's what ended up happening in this particular competition.
I would have to agree because if you look at the last official depth chart of the preseason, they were listed as co-ones.
Right,
So
exactly.
I
Yeah,
believe that you called it correctly in that,
they
hey, if we're going
allegedly
to have
hadn't made a decision
co-ones,
yet.
exactly. If we're going to have co-ones, then we're going to give it to our guy and let him battle to keep that spot throughout the rest of the season. Now, I think there are, of course, a couple of other spaces that we'll talk about on offense. I think we would agree from a defensive perspective there really weren't any shocks in terms of what that depth chart looked like. And at the end of the day, we also know that some of those players and how Dean Pease uses them will depend on the packages that he puts out there. So I think on defense, we really didn't have any shockers, but there are a couple more on offense that we thought, interesting. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But Jarvis, let's tell them about Coffee AM first, because as excited as we are about this Falcons depth chart, the reason that we keep the energy level sometimes the same energy all day is because of Coffee AM.
coffeeam.com/locked on. That is the website that you need to go to. Now I'm about to tell you why. It's because I get my day started each and every day with a nice brew coffee. AM, and I absolutely love it because I start off with the Kenya K cups. That was one thing that I started off when we started this thing with Coffee AM, and they have just been absolutely amazing. Like I'm talking about tea. You go on it takes you on a trip. It takes you all the way to Africa and say, you know what? I want to go to Africa today. Let's go to Kenya. Let's see what's going on. You pop that box open and you like, whoo, it's just something that might make your head blow off. It is absolutely
Mm.
amazing because, guys, this is the best small batch coffee roaster in the entire country. and
Love
they
it.
have all type of coffee, teas, and gift sets. If you're not really rocking with the coffee, you can get some teas. And if
Mhm.
you don't rock with the coffee or the tea, go and get a nice gift set for the person that you know. I know you know somebody that likes coffee and tea and or
Right.
tea in your family. So don't act like that. Now that I told you why you need to go there, here's some incentive to go there even more. When you go to coffeeam.com/locked on, drop in the coupon code box locked on, and you're gonna get 15% off of all those coffee,
Ooh.
teas, and gift sets that I just told you about. So yeah, and that's off of your first purchase. Now you don't try to use it every time you go there, but this is off your first purchase. Dropping the coupon code box locked on, and you're gonna get 15% off. Go ahead and pull up on the best small batch coffee roaster in the entire country.
Yeah, yeah, and you probably are going to need it, let's say Monday morning, because I am sure
Yes.
that you are going to be out all day and all night Sunday because it is game one of the regular season for the Falcons. And who knows, it's a rivalry weekend. So therefore, you might be out the entire weekend and may need coffee to perk you up just to get to the game on Sunday.
Yes,
But one
indeed.
of the things that made us perk up, one of the things that we were excited about was just seeing Drake London actually listed as wide receiver one because we wondered, hey, he hasn't practiced in a long time, got back to practice this week along with Brian Edwards, and there he is as number one on the depth chart, along, of course, with Brian Edwards on the other side. So, with that in mind, you kind of think about it like, did that encourage you when you saw Drake's name on the list to say that that was an add of depth in terms of the passing game, or not so much because maybe you're thinking, for lack of a better term, he'll have a pitch count on how much he plays?
I definitely think it's the latter. Now, but I'm still encouraged though to see that he's healthy enough for them to, or they're comfortable enough putting him at wide receiver one, because you
Hmm.
don't do that if you don't feel like he's healthy and you're going to
Yeah,
proceed with caution. And I think that
right.
so it's a little bit of combination of both. If I can do that, so I think one of the things that you also you're going to look for is that how they're going to use them, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be on a pitch count, then what type of formation you going to use them in? Is he going to be split out wide with Kyle Pitts? Those are some of the
Hmm.
things that I'm excited to see, because
Yeah.
I just really, like I said, I've said it on this show before, and I will
Hmm.
continue to say it. I believe Arthur Smith is a really really good play caller. He's a
Yeah.
guy that
Yeah.
puts his players in positions to make plays, and it's really up to them as to whether or not they're going to do that. Kind of reminds me of another guy, Kyle Shanahan. Jake Matthews was actually talking about that, how
Hmm.
things were eerily similar to when they, the year, obviously we know Kyle Shanahan, it was a struggle that first year, and then that second year is when 2016, when they went into that, so went on that Super Bowl run. So I think that
Yes.
if you're hearing it from a guy who was out there actually on the
Hmm.
field, I think that that's something that you have to pay attention to, because I believe that
Yes.
Arthur Smith has that. He was a rookie head coach last year. You talk about the sophomore league for players. I think we're going to see a sophomore league for Arthur Smith as well.
Indeed. And I think too that when you look across, I feel like he has more, and I'm going to call them toys for lack of a better term, but he has a few more
Indeed.
toys to play with and
Yes.
tinker around with this year. And one of the areas where I believe he has more depth and just more to work with, which will actually give us a versatile offensive game plan because you can, is because you do have a better running back room than you had a
Yes.
year ago. And of course, it's going to be led and anchored by Cordero Patterson, although we know he's going to be more of a hybrid player. But I believe to have a Damian Williams, who of course is second on the depth chart, to have a Tyler Algier in that room as well, and even to have someone like Avery Williams, who might be fourth down the depth chart, but at least he's reliable and at least he's the system. I really like what I see in terms of what Arthur Smith and Dave Ragone will be able to do in the run game. We also saw some highlights of it, if you will. And we know on the sneaky tip, Caleb Huntley is still on that practice squad. So you never quite know what that might mean. But I do like the way that the running back room is shaping up. And I feel like CP, Damian Williams, Algier, that's where we start. But what are your thoughts, especially in terms of, is that where that room ends up in terms of pecking order?
I don't think so. I believe that Algier is going to work his way into that splitting time with Cordell Patterson. I wholeheartedly believe that, because when you talk about a guy being versatile, right? Like versatility is how you get on the field, and
Mm-hmm.
for him to be in his rookie year to be able to pass block like I believe he can. I
Yes.
think that's the way how you earn your way on the field because
Hmm.
when you think about it, when have you last time you seen Cordell Patterson sitting up here in the back protecting and you didn't see
Right.
that much.
Right.
People like to try me. Go ahead and try me on that. Go ahead and go back and watch the film
Hmm.
if you doubt your boy because he wasn't in a lot of those situations. And then
Right.
Damian Williams, not necessarily really didn't see him do that too much in
Hmm.
the preseason.
Right.
But I think that Algier is a guy that can get his way on the field from a pass protection standpoint and being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. And we know
Yes.
what that tote game hitting on. So I think that right now he's third, but I think eventually he bumps up to at least that second spot and splitting time with Cordell Patterson when he's not on the field.
Agreed. And just depending on how things play out in that wide receiver room, there may be times where he really shows, especially with Toten Rock, he shows that he's going to be the number one option in the backfield. So when we come back, speaking of number one, haha, we go trolling folks sometimes, we get petty sometimes. And when you're number one and you're back on top of the mountain, you get to be petty too. We'll talk about it in For the Culture.